During the taping of our weekly high school football preview show that'll air on Double T 104.3 on Friday evenings, my co-host Choice Wooden brought out a really interesting point, mentioning that Friendship this entire year had been flirting with disaster. I hadn't quite thought of it that way. I guess sometimes when a team has slow starts, you can tend to gloss over it, but I think he's absolutely right. I'm Phil Torino, and once again, this is the Lone Star Varsity High School Football Show. Thanks very much for watching. And just back to that point quickly, I think presently it would be unwise to pick Monterey over Friendship, given how last year's game went. I mean, you're talking about a 40-point margin between the two teams, and as exceptional as Monterey has looked, I think Friendship right now is still the reigning district champion. Now, a win for the Plainsmen in this contest would really, I think, upset the balance sort of everything in this district. The same really goes if Coronado is able to beat Amarillo High, that game on Thursday evening up in Amarillo. I think right now, the play of Baylor Mitchell has been nothing short of extraordinary. I mean, coming into this year, we were unclear of what exactly we were going to get from him. He didn't start as the starter last year, but right now he's through 6 games, he leads the area in touchdowns with 25 combined. The next closest player is Jalen Nolan from Brownfield with 22. So those two players right there are just having an outstanding start to the year. With Friendship, too, I think it has skill at the right positions, and it really has the big playability when it needs to. I think its defense is also a little more organized right now, and I think it can adjust to whatever wrinkles Mitchell may throw in. So I still like the Tigers here in this contest, although it will definitely not be as much of a wash as last year's game was, and I don't think it's inconceivable for Monterey to win this game. A quick word about 1-4A D1. You know, there was a time when entering last year we thought Estacado would, without question, have it locked up. It was unclear what Seminole would get in its first season with Ken Jackson as coach. Also unclear what Levelland would do with Jared Sanderson and first-year quarterback Nick Gerber. Now I think it's much clearer that, to me, the only teams that can compete for the top of this district right now are Pampa and Levelland. Seminole, it lost Brett Hicks to a collarbone injury. He was a really promising junior quarterback, doing well in his second year. But to me, I think this is a big setback for Seminole, unless it can find someone that can come in and run its offense. Same thing goes for Estacado. I think I've seen enough through the first 6 weeks about what this team is capable or incapable of. There are those I keep hearing that it'll improve drastically. I think that's a little bit naive, and that goes for all teams in the sense that I think teams show you who they are through the first 6 weeks. It doesn't mean there's not room for improvement, but after a month and a half, you sort of get a feel for which teams are going to be strong and which aren't. I get that Estacado's defense is outstanding. I get that it causes a lot of turnovers. I think just because it has a win over Lakeview doesn't mean that all of a sudden its offense is going to come together and will lead it to wins over a team like a Pampa or a Levelland. Just a final thought on the Lobos, too. A lot of people were panicking, I think, and overreacting when Levelland started 0-3. To me, this was the exact same situation the team found itself in last year, and all of a sudden, look how much it has rebounded now. 2-3 going to a home game against Seminole that I believe it will win. It had a game against Brownfield that was actually called a no contest. It was tied at 42 in the third. I think Levelland was on its way. It had the momentum to winning that contest. So all of a sudden we go from a situation where no one thinks Levelland is capable of much of anything to definitely being in the discussion for the top of a district title. About teams that have a chance to roll through district undefeated, I think there are a handful of them. Crosbyton and Seagraves are definitely two of those teams I feel will head into the playoffs with perfect records in district. The only loss that Seagraves has presently is to Muleshoe. The same thing goes for the Mules. I think that Littlefield, as strong as that team has been, I don't think in that final game in November, it has a chance to beat Muleshoe. It would take some great improvements and some strides from the Wildcats to make that happen. New Deal is another team as well. I think once it gets past Abernathy, it will also go undefeated. Idalou has the opportunity. The only concern I have is that it plays Spearman at Spearman. I think that one could be difficult for the Wildcats to pull it off. So I am not chalking them up to get a win there right now, but I think that is certainly conceivable. Also with Post has a home game against Coleman Friday. I was out there speaking to that team, and they're a great group. They seem to be having a lot of fun and enjoying this 5-0 start. Michael Pittman told his team that I suppose his worst nightmare after they beat Denver City was that everyone's mother and uncle and grandfather was going to tell them, how awesome they were and how strong that start had been. That could be concerning for a couple of reasons, because it was 3-0 this year to start, now 5-0. Last year was 1-2, so this group didn't exactly have that enormous success early on. I think the Antelopes are in a good place right now. I don't think Coleman is nearly as strong as it was last year. Plus, if you take away a 3-hour and 22-minute lightning delay before what the teams had last year, I think it's a much more level playing field, and I like the Antelopes in this one. This has been the Lone Star Varsity High School Football Show. Thank you very much for watching, and please keep up with all our social media at Lone Star Varsity on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and of course Periscope throughout the weekend. Thanks very much.